Imagine waking up one day and discovering you had the skills of the greatest athlete in the world. Now imagine that same athlete waking up to find those skills completely gone, transferred to someone who has no idea what to do with them. This is the story of Thunderstruck, a film that asks a simple question: what happens when talent and hard work collide in the most unexpected way? Our story takes us to Oklahoma, where a teenage boy's wildest dream is about to come true, but not in the way he ever imagined. This is a tale of magic, basketball, and learning that sometimes the greatest gift isn't talent at all, but the courage to keep trying when everything seems impossible. Our story begins in Oklahoma, where basketball isn't just a sport, it's a way of life. Here we meet Brian Newell, a 16-year-old kid with a passion that burns brighter than his ability to fulfill it. Brian lives and breathes basketball. He dreams of wearing his school's Eagles jersey, of hearing the crowd chant his name, of sinking that game-winning shot as the buzzer sounds. But there's just one problem. Actually, two problems. Brian is short for a basketball player, and more critically, he has absolutely zero natural talent for the sport. While his classmates glide across the court with grace and precision, Brian stumbles. While they sink three-pointers with ease, Brian can barely make a layup from 2 feet away. At school, Brian holds the least glamorous position on the Eagles team. He's not a player, not even a bench warmer. He's the team assistant, essentially the water boy, the kid who hands out towels while his classmates play the game he desperately wants to be part of. After another game spent watching from the bench, Brian trudges home, defeated but not broken. He collapses on his couch and does what he does every single night. He pulls up recordings of his absolute hero, the player he studies like a scholar studies ancient texts, Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, the NBA superstar playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder, is everything Brian wishes he could be. Tall, skilled, graceful, unstoppable. Brian watches every move Kevin makes, studying his footwork, his shooting form, the way he reads the game like poetry in motion. This hope is what keeps him going. Every single day, Brian practices in his driveway, shooting hundreds of shots, but the results are always the same. His shots clang off the rim, the ball bounces awkwardly away. It's almost comical how bad he is, and his younger sister Ashley certainly thinks so. She records Brian's most embarrassing training moments on her phone, creating a collection of failures. One morning at school changes everything. Walking through the crowded hallways, Brian spots a new face, a girl he's never seen before. Her name is Isabel, and for Brian, time seems to slow down the moment he sees her. She's beautiful, confident, and completely out of his league. He's instantly smitten. During lunch, Mitch fills Brian in. Isabel just moved to town a few days ago. Mitch encourages Brian to go talk to her. Brian, gathering every ounce of courage, straightens his shirt and walks across the cafeteria toward Isabel's table. His heart is pounding, but he's determined to at least say hello. But before he can even open his mouth, something terrible happens. Connor, the arrogant captain of the Eagles basketball team, spots Brian approaching. A cruel smile spreads across Connor's face as he points toward the cafeteria's TV screens. Within seconds, a video begins playing for the entire school to see. On every screen, Brian appears in his backyard, attempting his most ambitious training exercise yet. He set up a trampoline near his basketball hoop, planning to use it to finally achieve his dream of dunking the ball. But the execution is spectacularly disastrous. Brian jumps far too high, loses complete control, and crashes directly into the basketball hoop, where he ends up hanging upside down by his shorts, stuck and flailing helplessly. The entire cafeteria erupts in laughter. Connor's grin is wide and satisfied. For Brian, this is the lowest moment of his life. Any thought of talking to Isabel evaporates as he rushes out of the cafeteria, his face burning with shame. That evening, Brian sits in his room, replaying the disaster in his mind. His father, Joe, notices his son's despair and decides to do something special. He walks into Brian's room holding 2 tickets. Would Brian like to go see the Thunder play tonight? Brian's eyes light up immediately. The chance to see Kevin Durant play in person is enough to pull him out of his depression. Soon, father and son are heading to the arena. When they arrive, the atmosphere is electric. The stadium is packed with thousands of fans. The game begins, and Kevin Durant is in top form. The Thunder are playing against the Detroit Pistons, and Kevin is absolutely unstoppable. By halftime, the Thunder had built a commanding lead, dominating with a score of 61-37. During the halftime break, the stadium team announces a special contest. They're going to select one lucky person to attempt a half-court shot, and if that person makes it, they'll win $20,000. The mascot begins scanning the crowd, and then, impossibly, the light stops on Brian. His heart nearly stops. He's escorted down to the court, his legs shaking. Kevin Durant himself walks over to watch. Brian can barely breathe. But then, from the crowd, Brian hears Connor shouting, mocking him, telling everyone that Brian is going to miss. The heckling makes Brian even nervous. He looks at the basket, grips the ball, and throws it with all his might. The shot is awful. The ball doesn't even come close to the basket. Instead, it sails into the crowd and hits Rumble, the Thunder's mascot, directly in the head. The poor mascot crumbles to the ground, knocked unconscious. The crowd gasps, then laughs. Mortified, Brian starts to shuffle back toward the stands. But then something unexpected happens. Kevin Durant approaches Brian. Instead of mocking him, Kevin does something incredibly kind. He takes the basketball, signs it, and hands it to Brian, telling him to keep practicing and never give up. He says that when talent doesn't work for you, you have to work to achieve talent. Brian is stunned by the kindness. As Kevin hands Brian the ball, both of them touching it simultaneously, something strange happens. A brief electrical sensation passes between them. A tiny shock that travels from Kevin's hands through the ball into Brian's body. Both of them pause for just a second, but both dismiss it as static electricity. Brian returns to his seat, unaware that his life has just changed in ways he cannot possibly imagine. The next morning, Brian wakes to sports radio. The announcers are discussing something shocking. The Thunder somehow managed to lose to the Pistons in one of the most stunning collapses in recent memory. Kevin Durant returned for the second half and played terribly, missing every shot, fumbling passes. Brian finds the news strange, but doesn't think much of it. While changing in the bathroom, Brian casually throws his dirty clothes toward the laundry basket across the room. The clothes sail through the air in a perfect arc and land directly in the basket. Brian pauses, surprised, but shrugs it off. At school, during science class, strange things continue. Mitch tells Brian that Connor uploaded the video of Brian's failed shot. As Mitch explains this, Brian is examining an anatomical model. Without thinking, Brian lifts the liver and begins spinning it on his fingertip like a basketball, perfectly balanced. Both Brian and Mitch freeze, staring in disbelief. Brian discovers he can do this with any object. Something has definitely changed. That evening, Brian goes to the local park. They spot a carnival tent with basketball hoops. Standing there is Isabel, and next to her is Connor, trying to impress her. Connor takes shot after shot but misses every single one. Brian laughs at Connor's failures. Connor notices and challenges Brian to prove he can do better, but Brian, feeling unusually confident, accepts. When Brian picks up the basketball and shoots, the ball drops perfectly through the hoop. Connor's smile vanishes, but Brian makes every single shot perfectly. Brian wins the giant stuffed panda and presents it to Isabel. Connor storms away. Isabel thanks Brian, and he asks if she'd like to spend more time together. She agrees. While Brian's life improves dramatically, Kevin Durant's world falls apart. In a training session with his manager, Alan, Kevin attempts to practice and every single one misses. Everything that once came naturally now feels foreign. Alan watches with growing concern. Meanwhile, Brian practices in his backyard that night, but instead of his usual clumsy attempts, every shot swishes perfectly through the net. He even attempts a dunk, jumping higher than ever before, and slams the ball through the hoop without needing any trampoline assistance. Confident he's finally discovered his talent, Brian finds Coach Ambrose and asks to try out for the team. The coach tells him there are no openings. Connor laughs and tells Brian to stop embarrassing himself, but Brian challenges Connor to a one-on-one. Connor accepts. As soon as the game begins, Brian steals the ball with lightning-fast reflexes and scores perfectly. Connor tries to fight back, but Brian defends with impossible skill. To test Brian further, the coach and his assistant both step onto the court, 2-on-1. But Brian handles them easily and finishes with a thunderous dunk that leaves everyone speechless. The coach immediately offers Brian a spot. His first real game arrives. Brian is nervous, but once the game begins, instinct takes over. He makes perfect assists, steals the ball, moves with precision. Connor refuses to pass him the ball, but Coach Ambrose screams at Connor to pass to Brian. With the game tied and only seconds remaining, Brian receives the pass, jumps high, and slams the ball through the hoop as the buzzer sounds. The Eagles win. Brian's transformation from zero to hero happens at lightning speed. He goes from being mocked to being celebrated. Days later, Brian goes to a go-kart track and spots Isabel racing. He challenges her to a race, but Brian, overflowing with confidence, starts showing off and crashes into a wall of tires. There's concern in her eyes about his growing ego. While Brian soars, Kevin Durant continues his devastating decline. During a commercial shoot for his new sneakers, Kevin can't make a single shot. Allen watches with panic. On television, analysts are questioning whether Kevin's career is over. One evening, Allen stumbles upon a local news segment covering a high school basketball sensation named Brian Newell. Allen remembers Brian from the halftime contest. According to the news, Brian was barely on the team before that game, and now he's averaging 48 points per game. Allen does the mental math. 48 points was Kevin's exact average at Brian's age. As Allen watches recordings of Brian's games, he notices Brian's playing style is identical to Kevin Durant's. A wild theory begins forming in Allen's mind. Somehow, Kevin's talent has been transferred to this teenage boy during that halftime contest when they both touched the autographed basketball. Allen goes to Kevin with his theory. Kevin thinks his agent has lost his mind, but when Kevin can't provide any better explanation, he reluctantly agrees to investigate. Allen tracks Brian down to a local diner where he's on a date with Isabel. Allen introduces himself and explains that Kevin wants to do a special charity visit to Brian's school. Brian agrees immediately. When Kevin arrives, students crowd the hallways. Brian is called forward to greet Kevin, and they shake hands while Allen watches intently, but nothing happens. Allen suggests Kevin spend the day with Brian. Throughout the day, Kevin and Brian bond, but when Kevin says he needs to leave, Allen becomes desperate. Allen arranges for a photo with Kevin and Brian both holding the autographed basketball, but once again, nothing changes. Kevin, frustrated, tells his agent to stop.
Hours later, Brian plays in another game, but something has changed in his attitude. When Connor gets open and calls for the ball, Brian ignores him. Instead of making the smart team play, Brian takes a difficult shot himself. Connor is furious. Brian finishes with another dominant performance, but his teammates notice his increasingly selfish play. After the game, the popular crowd invites Brian to a massive party. At the party, Brian is the center of attention. He talks about himself constantly, barely noticing that Isabel looks uncomfortable. Finally, fed up, Isabel decides to leave. Suddenly, the party erupts in chaos. Allen arrives in disguise. He finds Brian and pulls him aside. Allen demands that Brian return Kevin's talent. He explains that before the Thunder game, Brian wasn't even on the team. Now he averages 48 points per game. Allen tells Brian that having success while a good man like Kevin loses everything is wrong. These words hit Brian hard. The next morning at school, the Eagles are being celebrated with a huge pep rally for reaching the state championship finals for the first time in 30 years. But as Brian waits, he spots Isabel slipping away toward the library. He runs after her and tries to apologize. Isabel tells him she's worried, that success has changed him. But Brian, still defensive, makes a terrible mistake. He tells her they only met because of basketball. Isabel looks hurt. She tells him that's not true, that from her very first day, before he had any talent, she noticed him and liked him for who he was. It was his kindness she was attracted to. With those cutting words, she walks away.
Brian sits on the bleachers thinking about everything. The weight of guilt settles on his shoulders. After a long struggle, Brian makes the hardest decision of his life. He calls Alan, telling him that he's ready to give Kevin the talent back. Alan immediately picks Brian up and drives him to the arena. They find Kevin on the court, missing every single shot. Alan suggests they play one-on-one. They begin to play, and within minutes, it's obvious that Brian has abilities far beyond normal. More than that, Brian executes Kevin's signature moves perfectly. Kevin finally accepts that Alan's theory might be true. Convinced the transfer is real, Alan tells Brian and Kevin to hold the ball together and repeat their exact words from their first meeting. They do as instructed, but nothing happens. Alan tries everything, creating static electricity, bringing in magnets, but no matter what they try, Kevin's talent remains with Brian. After exhausting every possibility, Kevin thanks Brian for his honesty. Both part ways, uncertain how to fix the impossible situation. That evening, Brian goes to Isabel's house. He tells her everything. He confesses that all his success isn't really his. He tells her the whole story about Kevin Durant, the autographed ball, the mysterious transfer. Isabel listens, her expression a mixture of disbelief and concern. As he plays the video again, watching the sequence carefully, something clicks in his mind. Brian suddenly understands the pattern. Before touching Kevin and the ball, he hit the mascot with the basketball. That was the sequence. Ball hits mascot, then ball and hands connect with Kevin. Maybe the transfer requires that exact sequence. Without wasting another second, Brian grabs his bike and races toward the stadium. At the arena, Kevin is on the court playing in what might be the worst game of his career. Brian reaches the stadium and rides his bike at full speed. He bursts through a closing gate. He spots Kevin and runs towards him, carrying the autographed ball. Brian tells Kevin that he's figured it out. He points to Rumble the mascot. Brian winds up and throws the basketball, hitting Rumble directly in the head. The mascot crumbles to the ground. With Rumble down, Brian and Kevin both place their hands on the autographed ball. This time, Brian suggests they reverse their original dialogue. Kevin says he wants Brian's talent, and Brian responds with Kevin's original advice. As they speak these reversed words, a powerful electrical current surges through the basketball. Blue sparks crackle around their hands, energy flowing from Brian back to Kevin. Kevin immediately returns to the game, and the transformation is instantaneous. He moves across the court like he's been awakened. He scores on his first possession, then steals the ball and scores again. The crowd erupts in cheers. He leads an incredible comeback. The Thunder win convincingly. Brian, watching from the sidelines, feels happiness and sadness. He's thrilled to see his hero restored.
The next morning, Brian wakes up and immediately goes to his backyard. He picks up a basketball and takes a shot. The ball clangs off the rim and bounces away. He tries again and misses again. His talent is completely gone. At school, Brian finds Mitch and his old group of friends. He approaches them with genuine humility and apologizes for abandoning them. His friends accept his apology. Later, Isabel approaches Brian. She tells him she saw him at the stadium talking to Kevin, and moments later, she watched Kevin regain his abilities and win the game. Now that Brian has given back what wasn't his, now that he's chosen to do the right thing, Isabel sees the person she first liked. They reconcile. But there's still one massive challenge ahead, the state championship final. Brian is still expected to play. Despite knowing he'll probably play terribly, Brian decides he won't let his team down. The day of the championship arrives, and the arena is packed. The Eagles take the court, confident. When the game begins, Brian's teammates pass him the ball expecting magic. Instead, they get panic. Brian frantically passes the ball back and it goes out of bounds. On the next possession, Brian misses an easy layup. By halftime, the Eagles are being destroyed, trailing 47-31. In the locker room, Coach Ambrose asks Brian what's wrong. Brian says maybe he should sit on the bench, but Coach Ambrose refuses. Brian returns to the court with no hope, but then he looks up and sees Alan and Kevin Durant. Seeing his idol there, Brian feels a surge of motivation. During a timeout, Brian calls the entire team into a huddle. He may not have the physical talent to score anymore, but he realizes he has something else: knowledge.
From watching countless hours of Kevin Durant highlights, Brian understands basketball strategy better than anyone on the court. He starts giving his teammates instructions, explaining defensive rotations, offensive sets. He tells them to forget about individual glory and focus on teamwork. The team agrees. When the second half begins, the Eagles execute Brian's strategies perfectly. They start moving the ball, playing selfless basketball. Brian focuses on what he can do, defending, stealing the ball, making smart passes. He isn't scoring, but he's making everyone around him better. Slowly, the Eagles mount a comeback. With just seconds left, the score is 60-62. The Eagles are down by 2 points. Brian receives the inbound pass, but the defense collapses. The defense forces the ball back to Brian with only 4 seconds on the clock. Brian is the only player with a clear shot, but it's from deep. Kevin Durant shouts encouragement. With 3 seconds left, Brian decides to pass to Connor, but Connor is double-teamed. The ball comes back to Brian with 2 seconds remaining. There's no other option. Brian takes a deep breath and shoots the ball from near midcourt. The buzzer sounds. The entire gymnasium falls silent. The ball seems to hang there forever. And then, impossibly, miraculously, the ball drops through the net at the final second. The gymnasium explodes in celebration. The Eagles have won the championship. Brian's teammates lift him onto their shoulders. He won, but not with stolen talent. He won with heart, with intelligence, with teamwork, and with one perfect shot at exactly the right moment. Days later, Brian meets Kevin Durant at a practice court. They shoot hoops together. Kevin thanks Brian for giving back his talent. Brian thanks Kevin for the lessons he learned. Kevin invites Brian to keep practicing with him, telling him that the hard work Brian is putting in now will pay off far more than any temporary magical talent ever could. Both of them learned the same valuable lesson. Natural talent can open doors, but character, hard work, and integrity are what truly define a person. In the end, Brian didn't need Kevin Durant's talent to become a champion. He just needed to believe in himself and remember that the greatest victories come not from what you're given, but from what you earn. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe to Real Brief for more Real Brief movie recaps. See you on our next recap.